Hello and welcome. It's that time again. Christmas. No, it's the ESPC show. It's Paul and it's
Megan.
And here we are. What are we doing this week, Megan?
We are doing our predictions for 2025.
Yeah. When you say we.
Yeah, I was going to say, actually, it's not. It's your predictions.
Are you going to be grilling me, are you?
Yes,
okay.
I am.
I've done a bit of prep.
Well, that's good. That's good. Yeah, we're going to be taking a look into our crystal ball at the next 12 months. What is kind of in store for the property market.
Yeah, indeed, yeah.
Perfect. So I guess the best thing to start with is maybe taking a wide lens.
Yeah, definitely.
A bit of a macro view.
Bit of a macro view. So let's think about that. So I think firstly, when we talk about our predictions, this is based on really no escalation of any global strife that we're seeing. It's been a year for that, as you know. But if we look at interest rates first, we've come on to talk about the mortgage market at the moment, but base rate, as we know, is 4.75%.
Yeah.
Andrew Bailey said recently that he thinks next year, if everything goes to plan, we might see 4 cuts. And I think if we see 4 cuts in the base rate, high probability there will be 0.25% cuts.
Yeah. So
which will then take us...
We're looking at sub 4%.
Sub 4%.
Yeah.
Now, there is also a bit of a push-pull there because some of the things that have been announced in the Westminster budget are inflationary. So we expect maybe the costs of things are going to go up. We know wage inflation because of the increase in minimum wage. National insurance contributions for employers means that maybe some of those costs get passed through to us end consumers. So our price of bread and all the other things go up the basket. So we might see inflation hovering above that 2% target that Bank of England set. But I think the Monetary Policy Committee have kind of taken the view we will get there. We've got things fairly stable and we will see cuts. Should we just talk about the mortgage market then? Because we were having that chat in the car, weren't we, about that?
Yeah, I think it's important to acknowledge, I think 4%, we're sitting around 4% just now in the mortgage market. Obviously the base rate's a bit higher. I think it's important to acknowledge where we were this time last year. Because I think 4% still feels quite high.
Something to be celebrating, I think, when you think about where we were. And that speculation at the time that we may go even higher, which never come about, thank heavens. Yeah. We didn't see 8% or 7%.
No. We're sitting about 6% this time last year. And I think to see a 2% drop in that market in a year is really promising. I think we'll go on to chat about how we've seen the market, and how we predict it will go. But the market has been relatively, good this year. And I think we're seeing that buyers getting a bit more confident because of this.
Yeah, and I think if we just finalising that conversation on the mortgage market, we've also seen some new products come to the market. We saw the Barclays 100% mortgage if you're in rented accommodation. We're seeing fixed rates, just announced the other day, at 10 years. So you can fix your rate now that's a big bet, isn't it? 10 years. Some people are. And the thing we chatted with our ESPC mortgage team about, we're seeing longer terms.
Yeah.
Not just, it was always 25 years when I was young. But we're seeing those longer now. We're seeing 30 and 35, 40.
Yeah.
So, I think the mortgage market's trying to be creative to find ways that we can get, that they can lend, because I think ultimately that's what they want to do, really.
And, so let's chat about sales.
Yeah.
At ESPC.com, on ESPC.com. They were up this year.
Yeah, so our solicitor estate agents had a fantastic year. Sales were up 17% on previous years. I think they're beating the market. 2, phenomenally busy. And I suppose the question you're about to ask me is...
Yeah, is that going to happen again?
I think in terms of sales, we'll have another really good year in 2025. If you're asking me, will we see a 17% increase on this year, I'd probably say no. I think that just seems too ambitious. But I think we'll have a really strong year. Some reasons for that. I think affordability with the sort of minimum wage coming up. And then I think wage structures within businesses will again go up. And we're already seeing some of that. So hopefully more properties fall into are more affordable for people because the salaries have gone up. I also think we're seeing a little bit of the cooling, as we know, in terms of premiums that people are paying. So again, more reasons why I think first-time buyers will be able to get on the ladder. I hope, let's see, government helps as well with some Help to Buy scheme. We've asked the Housing Minister to come in. We'll ask him again. But it would be nice if ultimately there was something there. We've not heard any whispers of that. But
do you think that's likely? Do you think that we're likely to see support for first-time buyers?
I think it's needed. Is it likely? If it is, I think it will be probably like last time, massively oversubscribed and available for a very short period of time, unfortunately.
Okay. Yeah.
But, I think the mortgage market's trying to find its own way with all these creative products.
And how do we think, so we always describe it as a premium when somebody pays over the home report.
Yeah.
We describe that as a premium. How have we found that this year, and do we expect that to increase, decrease next year? I
think that's what's helped the 17% increase in sales, is that first-time buyers are being able to get on the ladder because the premiums have been smaller, so they've had to, they've self-funded that because you're not probably going to get that from your bank. So we're at 102.1% on the last home report. On the last house price report, I envisage it will be similar next year. I don't think we will on some, but on average it will be about that. We're not going to see 20-25% home report, premiums being paid, maybe just for the one-off properties, as we know.
Yeah.
Like that one that got 50,000 views on ESPC the other day.
Yeah.
I also think we'll see less competition for some property because I think we'll see less landlords because of the additional dwelling supplement tax going up. But we'll come to that. I'll have a rant about that later.
Okay, we can come back to that. Let's talk about listings now.
Let's.
Listings obviously are properties that are listed on ESPC.com. Sales are properties that have sold on ESPC.com. They do not equal each other all the time.
They very rarely do.
Yeah. So let's talk about how listings have been this year and what they're going to be like
next
potentially.
year. Yeah.
Your prediction.
Okay, so this year, firstly, been really good. Listings are up 12% year on year. So we've seen a lot, and that's to the end of November. A lot more properties come into the market, and as we've already said, selling. One of the things I think has been stimulated the amount of listings this year has been there's been more choice. When we were doing the podcast earlier in the year, we were saying the amount of available stock on ESPC.com. At one point, it was 30% up. So there's 30% more properties to choose from. Do you know what it was yesterday? Let me tell you.
Yeah, tell me.
Tell you. You're intrigued. It was 2.6%. So
okay, big drop.
What's been happening in the last 4 or 5 months is there's been a lot of listings, but there's been more sales. So that's eaten away at the available stock. And you're going to find that this time of year anyway, because, there's less listings and there's people trying to get deals in the bag before Christmas. But I just think it's interesting that the choice and the supply is restricted a little bit. I expect that to turn again when we get into January, February. So I am predicting that we'll have a good, strong year for listings, probably at a similar level than this year. I don't think we're going to see another 12% on top of this year's 12%, if you know what I mean. The X factor is VAT on private schools.
Yes.
We've talked about this briefly, haven't we?
We have. So obviously that can sometimes drive some parents away from putting their children to private school. I've saw in the news yesterday that state schools in Edinburgh have been inundated with applications from private school families.
I can believe that.
And so what that may do is drive those families into the better catchment areas for the best rated schools.
Yeah,
the top
which
schools,
are already
already
so
got.
it's like heated up those markets. Yeah.
So are we going to see price increases in those areas?
Are we?
I am not here to make predictions, Paul. That's your job today.
Yeah, I think that's it. It's it'll come down to the supply demand balance, won't it? And there's only a finite supply, and if there's a increased demand, which I suspect there might be in certain areas, I think we'll see. We'll talk about our hotspots probably when we get into March, April. We'll see if that flows through. We'll
Absolutely.
Make a good show, that one, I think.
Yeah. So selling price, average selling price, how's that looking now that we're at the end of 2024?
Yeah.
And then what do you think is going to happen to that in 2025?
I think it's been a good year on the average sale price. Again, depends which end of the telescope you're looking at, doesn't it? If you're a buyer, it's been a tough year. If you're a seller, it's been a good year because prices have gone up. Certainly in the last house price report, we saw a 5.3% increase. Average value now sits at £286,263, which is a lot of money. I think we will see, as we've sort of had for most of the year, things have calmed a little. The premium that people are paying over the home report has calmed. We're at 102.1% again in the last report. So I think we'll have a similar year. I think we might see a nudge up of prices. They're not going to double. We're not going to see that, but we will see some hotspots for the reasons we've just discussed already, really.
Yeah.
And even those areas which have been less popular, I think will do quite well next year.
Yeah, and I think just to highlight, in case anyone's listening and has never listened to ESPC content before, when we say 102%, we mean 2% over
we do.
home report,
yes.
and 102% of the home report.
Thank you.
No, it's just in case someone's thinking, oh my gosh, I've got to pay double. That's not what we mean at all. It's just and we've seen it up at 110, 120.
Yeah, so there's been
it's down.
You're having to find that premium, that 10% on top of finding your deposit for the mortgage. So that's changed this year, and I think that's for the better. Yeah. It's helped your first-time buyers get on the ladder.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's good.
Speed of sale.
Speed of sale.
How fast are properties going to be flying off the shelves next year?
Well, I think, again, if you look at the last house price report, our medium time sale was 21 days. So it's pretty swift.
Yeah, 3 weeks.
3 weeks, wow.
Yeah.
How long are your Christmas decorations up for?
A little bit longer than that.
Well, there you go. So I think it's likely that we'll see something similar. Mm-hmm. Again, it all comes down to, the only thing I ever learned in my economics, it all comes down to supply and demand. And I think if we have similar demand that we've had this year, I think, the speed of sale should stay the same. I think what we have seen this year and what has slowed things down is not so much agreeing the deal, it's the time between agreeing the deal and moving in. Because there's lots of deals agreed subject to selling, and we've had endless debates about the merits of that on the show. It's probably not the time for it now, but we believe that we might see less of that next year, but who really knows?
Absolutely. So we're now going to get on to potentially your rant.
Oh yeah, it's coming.
We're going to speak about the lettings market.
Yes.
So obviously we've got ESPC lettings.
Yeah.
It's an area of the market that is a very important area of the market. Do you want to talk us through just how the market has performed in the last 24 months? No, 12 months in 2024.
Yeah, we'll start first with how it's done, and then we'll come on to what might be different next year. In short, I think the market's done. It's done well. Again, depends who you are. If you're a landlord or a tenant, you've probably got a slightly different view. What I would say is at the lower level, and we're talking about rents sort of 1,000 to what is the average now, 1,106, 4.2% increase on last year. That market is very strong in terms of demand. So like we were taught about that property. We had the one in Haymarket, 1-bedroom flat under 1,000, 100 and plus tenants all interested. Yeah. We only let it to one. So we know that there's a real restriction of supply in that area.
Yeah.
What's happening at the top end is a little bit more interesting in as much that when the rent caps were lifted, a lot of landlords did put up the rents, and we're trying to find where the level was. And so we've almost got a standoff now between tenants and landlords, where landlords at the higher end are asking a certain amount and tenants are saying, I'm probably not going to pay that, I'm going to shop around. So at the higher end, there's, you are in that debate about, is it more cost effective to go and get a mortgage than it is to get a rental?
Yeah.
That we recognise that some people just want to rent, they don't want to buy.
Yeah.
And, that's the European model, as we know.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting one. I think the challenge, and the time to rent is 20 days, 6 days slower than last year, but still really strong. So, it's a healthy market in that respect. As I say, at the lower end, things are flying off the shelves. But, shall we get to it?
Yeah, but 2025 could be a very different story.
It could. I'm sort of rubbing my head already on this one. So what we've seen in the latest Scottish Government budget was that we saw ADS, additional dwelling supplements, go up. So in other words, if you already own a property, as most landlords do, they own their own home, and what they're doing is investing in a buy-to-let property, it's deemed to be a second home. Yeah. You're now not only paying LBTT, you're paying additional dwelling supplements on it. And so, as an example, a £200,000 property, your sort of taxation, if you like, is now sitting at 17,100. I believe that's going to put off some landlords because it's a lot of money to invest into, in terms of taxation. Two things strike me. I think I can understand that we're trying to discourage second homes. But I think landlords are two different things. And they're not buying it to live in once every 6 weeks. They're buying it to provide a property to the market. It's much needed. We've had so many people come on the show and tell us these stories that that there's a shortage of supply. The Scottish government's called a housing emergency, and certainly the day after this was announced, and it kind of happened overnight. So there was no notice of this. LinkedIn was pretty full with people, and it wasn't even as if there was two polarised views on this. Everyone was saying the same thing. Yeah. That was a mistake.
Absolutely.
One of my most popular LinkedIn posts all year, I think, because I just sort of laid out the, a genuine frustration that, we, even as ESPC, is given evidence, and it's hard, it's hard evidence to government saying, look, we really think we need to go a different direction here, but clearly we've gone that way. So I suppose in summary, I sense it might mean less available properties for the lettings market. So that could have its challenges, again, restricts supply. Always has a, I would suspect a positive impact, positive in as much that I think rents will go up,
Yeah, and I think in terms of the wider property market, how that will be affected is it potentially means there's more availability for first-time buyers. Yeah. Maybe, in that lower end of the market. It
certainly means there's more first-time buyers that might go, I can't get anything to rent, so I'm going to buy. I think there'll be more of that.
And there will be potentially less landlords picking up those 1-2 bedroom flats because of the ADS. Yeah,
that's a really good point.
Which is the maybe silver lining, but this is potentially going to discourage the landlords that are just want to invest in one property. They pull together their savings, they buy a property, and they want to provide a home for somebody.
Yeah, for a long time.
For a long time, yeah. This is potentially going to impact others less with large portfolios and things.
They're going to get caught up in this, whereas, as you say, people who are maybe larger portfolios, or it's a business to them, maybe take a slightly different view, potentially. And again, there's still clarity needed over, does this apply to build to rent or not? And there's still a whole debate about, what's going to apply to build to rent. But I'd agree. I think those small landlords, who are just in it for the right reasons, I think potentially now are going to think twice, and I think that's really regrettable.
Yeah, and I think, as you said, we will probably see these costs be passed down to the tenants.
No question. Yeah. No question. As we said, with inflation, any costs will, where possible, if the market can stand it, those things will be passed through, for sure.
And I mean, the average rent's sitting where they are. It's quite impossible to think that they could go up.
I mean, unless we see a real, and that's the thing, unless we see a real increase in wages.
Yeah, it's going to become unsustainable.
It's going to be unsustainable,
Yeah, absolutely.
But then what,
Yeah. Well, that's quite a depressing.
I've got some other thoughts.
Absolutely, let's hear some other thoughts from that.
Yeah, I mean, again, to sort of lighten the tone, I think probably the point we're making is, and probably the passion maybe coming through here is we just want a functioning market, and we want a fair market. We want buyers to be able to buy. We want renters to be able to rent property. That's all we're asking for, I think, isn't it? People should have the right to have a home, and we, as you know, with the Rock Trust, our charity, this is something we're passionate about. Is that everyone should be able to have something, be it affordable or temporary accommodation, whatever it is, it should be available.
And I think it's very easy for us. We speak about the property market and things like that. Obviously, a very important part of what we do. But at the end of the day, every single one of these statistics is a home for somebody.
Absolutely.
And that is, a basic necessity that everyone needs. So,
I mean, I was at a meeting and somebody said it should be a basic human right, and you can't really argue against that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
So, moving on to a couple of other things that we wanted to chat about.
I saw in my crystal ball.
Yes. Energy efficiency. How do you think that topic is going to be covered in 2025?
I think this is an increasingly growing area of interest for buyers and sellers, and legislation starting to point in this direction. And there's a bill going through at the moment, as we know, called the Heat and Buildings Bill. We are part of the consultation. They are talking there about making changes not only to the way energy efficiency is assessed, but also potential changes in terms of encouraging, shall we say, in the first instance, for people to move away from gas-fired central heating boilers and the like to clean energy, clean, efficient, non-polluting systems such as ground and air source heat pumps. I think we'll see more of that discussion happen next year. I think we're now, interestingly enough, we're starting to see in the mortgage market lenders assessing properties based on their energy performance certificate in terms of what percentage of mortgage they'll give. So they're thinking, okay, if it's more efficient, we might give a 85% mortgage, and if it's not, we will give a 75% mortgage. So we're starting to see that differential come.
Okay.
We also will see at some point the minimum requirements for properties that are available to let will need a certain energy efficiency rating, and then I think we'll see the same thing if you want to sell. You're going to have to get to a certain level. So it's fluid, and we're not quite clear where it's going to end up, but I think change is coming on that. And we're seeing now more and more people are having a good old read of the energy performance certificate and the recommendations, as and when they're buying a property.
Absolutely. I think maybe continue on to the kind of government input. We were going to chat through LBTT.
Yeah. So it's up for review next year.
On
My thoughts are, don't touch, just stop meddling would be, I genuinely think, I would, I'm of the view that we need a laissez-faire approach, leave the market to be, let it find its own level. And I think any tinkering, when we see things like LBTT get tinkered with and changed, it just creates these enormous spikes because people try and make changes before these things happen. And I don't necessarily think there's any real need to change anything. Of course, it'd be nice to suspend ADS for landlords. Of course, it'd be wonderful if we could do something even more for first-time buyers. I think we'd all get behind that. Mm-hmm. I just get nervous when we start tinkering too much, and I think the thing that we need to always bear in mind is clients will get caught up in this, and conveyancers are working flat out, and then suddenly you've calculated everything based on the purchase of this, and then something changes overnight or within a week's notice, then it's this, and it just causes a lot of disruption and stress in the market. So, I think we'll be quite clear on this with governments, I think. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think you're looking for further clarity on the housing bill.
Yeah, it'd just be nice to know. I mean, I think we are going to see rent controls, so away from caps, so we'll see controls, so it'll be inflation plus a percentage. I think it's unclear whether or not who that applies to. Will it apply to the build to rent, which is businesses who build properties to rent them out, and the market needs them because we need to get that supply tap turned on, if we're going to solve the housing emergency. So it'll be nice to get that clarity. There's talk of getting that in spring, summertime next year, so we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's important to talk about if there was much more house building happening, we would take issue with a lot less of what is happening. We would. Yeah. And I think, one of the positives that did come out of the budget, so to give it some balance, we do seem to be investing back into this hub idea, which is about trying to accelerate planning. Because when we've had Homes for Scotland in, who was the body for new build, saying it takes a long time to get from the idea of building something to ultimately shovel in the ground. So if we can accelerate that, as you'd say, you get the supply tap turned on a bit quicker. So looks like the back are reinvesting in that, and I think Homes for Scotland seemed, what's the phrase I would use, cautiously optimistic about some of those recommendations. So we'll see. Absolutely. So let's speak a bit closer to home, just to wrap up.
Yeah.
How have ESPC solicitor estate agents done this year?
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think we've just done our market research again, and it's evidenced that an ESPC solicitor estate agent will achieve 2% more for a property than a non-ESPC firm. I think, that speaks for itself. It's been consistent over many years, and I would urge anyone thinking of selling either now or in 2025 that go and talk to a solicitor agent. If you want to, if you want to maximise your yield and get as much as you can for your property, talk to a solicitor estate agent.
Absolutely, and so that is. I think that's all my notes that we had.
That's all I've got. Other than say we'll be back.
Yes, we'll be back.
Series 5.
Series 5. Not sure on an official start date.
Yes. But not that we're going anywhere. We're just trying to find a home.
Yeah. We'll be back. Thank you so much to everyone who has listened to the ESPC Property Show this year. We've had over 11,000 streams.
It's been really good. Yeah. Comments, queries, questions.
Yeah.
Guests that have come in on the back of questions. It's been good. I've really enjoyed this series.
Absolutely. And if you have listened to an episode, or if you've listened today and you have any questions you want us to cover in the new series, the more questions questions that
Yeah.
we get, the probably sooner we'll be back.
Absolutely.
So yeah, please let us know what your questions are or your feedback. We would love
Absolutely.
feedback too.
Breakfast of Champions.
Yeah.
And we've got a myriad of other things we're doing next year, and we'll be doing events. We'll be doing at least 1 or 2 live events, I would imagine.
Yes.
Something a bit different, different channels.
Absolutely. And the way to stay in the know about that is following us on social media.
Absolutely.
Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok.
I'm all over LinkedIn.
Follow Paul on LinkedIn. That's our
Do you know what? It's
call to
still
action
my
for
most
this.
popular post I know it's over 12 months now, is me lying on the floor pointing at a tree I just planted. So it's not necessarily what you say on LinkedIn.
No, absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, we do give a lot of good market commentary on there, not just myself, ESPC, we put a lot of good stuff out there. So yeah, please do look on the news section on ESPC. But I think that's it.
Yeah, absolutely. And please give us a follow wherever you're listening.
Indeed.
Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube.
And send us a Christmas card. Still time.
Yeah. Sure. Well, for the last time in 2024, that's everything. That's a wrap.
Yeah, that is a wrap. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And again, we really appreciate everything you've done for us this year. And we will see you in 2025. All the best. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.